Hi, this is Joe Bolen. Welcome to learning about VisualBasic.net. We're going to take a look at the PictureBox component in this lesson and see how to load images into the PictureBox from either out on the disk, bring it in through the open file dialog, or by using the resource file to store images that we might want to use in our PictureBox and bring them in from that resource file. So let's take a look at our Visual Studio and learn how to do that. I have Visual Studio up and I'm going to start it with a new project. We're going to start from beginning to end. I'm going to do a Windows, Visual Basic Windows Classic Desktop. I'm going to use the Windows Form application and I'm going to call this one Load PictureBox Demo. On that from the name, and I'm going to hit OK. And it'll create our initial code for our project, and we have our initial form. I'm going to rename the form to make it a little bit more meaningful, and I'm going to come over here to the Solution Explorer, hit Rename, right-click Rename, and call it Main Form. And when I do that, I'm going to have an error that will occur, and I'm going to click on My Project in the Solution Explorer, come over to Startup Form, and change it from Form 1 to now Main Form. And I'm going to, at this point, also hit Save All and give it a location. So I'm going to save it under Load PictureBox Demo. The solution name will also be Load PictureBox Demo, and I'm going to create a directory for that solution. And I'm going to use the default project folder for Visual Studio 2015. So I've saved the initial program. I can close out of this part of it right now. And I'm going to come back to our form and we're going to do the default settings for our form. So I'm going to click on the form lightly to highlight it and bring it to the properties area. One of the first things I'm going to do is give it a text on this one. So we're going to call it Load PictureBox Demo. And that'll change our text area in the title. Also, I'm going to have this start up in the start position to center screen to make it a little bit easier to watch. And also I'm going to change our font to the recommended Microsoft default of Seago UI. I'm going to use regular font style and 9 point. And everything else, when I put controls on the form, will inherit that initial default setting of Seago UI regular style 9 point. Okay, I've got that set. I'm also going to change the size of my form a little bit. And I think what I'll start on the initial size for our form, come down here to the size location. And I think I'm going to make this, let's say 640 by 640. Now, that's probably going to be too big, but that'll make it pretty large. Let's take the sizing handle and bring it up just a little bit. More like that. We'll start with that, and then we'll change it as we need to. So we've got our initial form set. I'm going to do a Save All to make certain I've captured it, and the little red dot that's there has gone away. At this point, I want to put on some controls. So we're going to go to the toolbox, or I can go up to the View toolbox. It's right here. I'm going to pin it so it's easy to work with. And also I'm going to slide my Solution Explorer and Properties section over a little bit. And one of the first things I'm going to bring into play is a group box. So I'm going to grab the group box, and now you have to find it. It's under Containers. Grab Group Box. I'll just double click. And I'm going to move it around a little bit, get its location. And for the group box, I want to change the property, so I'm going to come back here and slide over. And we're going to give this text name gender. And put a colon on the end. And I'm going to give this group box name a meaningful name of gender group box. Okay, we've got that set. Now, the reason I'm doing a group box is because I'm going to be putting 2 radio buttons in place, of course, male and female. So I'm going to grab the radio button and drop it in place, and let go. And the first one will be called the male radio button. for the name. And of course, for its text, I want to have it say mail. So I'm going to use the ampersand to make an access key of M, then mail on that. And while I'm here, I'm going to quickly grab that and do a Control-C and a Control-V to copy it, relocate underneath, and make this one the female radio button. Okay, it's now the female radio button, and it will have for its text ampersand FEMAL. There we go. So we got male and female. I'm going to do a little resizing now and shifting things. Okay, get our GroupBox set a little bit. There we go. So I've got male and female. Now let's bring in our picture box, and I'm going to grab the PictureBox Control, drag it over here and drop it, move it in place where I want it, and we'll just initially eyeball it, something like that. I think is what we're going to go with. And let's get it lined up a little bit. There we go. And also I want to bring in a button, but first let's get our picture box renamed. So I'm going to highlight the picture box. I'm going to call this the profile picture box. And I'm going to change its size mode for the picture box from normal to zoom. Zoom is much better because it keeps the aspect ratio of the image intact as it changes to fit the picture box. Now you can also come over here to click on the Smart GIF and change the size mode as well here with the drop down. But we're going to use it as zoom, and so we've got that set. We've given it a name of profile picture box, and the last thing I'm going to put on my form is a button, and that button I'm going to drag over here and release right about here. I'm going to call this the Get Image button. Okay, I've given it a name. Now let's give it a text. There we go. Okay, we've got that set. I'm done now with the toolbox. I'm going to unpin it, come back. I'm going to take the sizing handle and bring this over here and get it back. Real quickly, I'm going to take these controls, highlight them all, and make certain the anchor property for all of them are set. So I'm going to come up to the anchor, and they're all set fine. I'm going to go to the profile picture box and set its anchor so that if things change, it would stay in the center and grow. There we go. So we've got that all set. I'm going to now save all. Now we're going to create the code that we need for this. We've got a male and female radio buttons. Only one button can be checked and have a value. It's either checked on or it's off. It's a Boolean type function. For that, we also have the button and we have our picture box. So let's talk about, first of all, the one here with the male. And I'm going to go to this one, and we're going to go, instead of double clicking on it, I'm going to actually change the event for this. And it's the check change event, but I want, on that check change, I'm going to give it a new name, and I'm going to call this event the gender check change. Okay, and that gives me my code. Now let's take a look at that code a little bit more, and I'm going to expand it at this point so we can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to bring around the handles area so it's easier to see. Put a little white space in here. Okay, so I've got that gender checkbox. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have something take place, but I'm also going to go back to my main form design and do the same thing as I'm working with the property of the check change. Got the lightning bolt highlighted, and I'm going to hit the drop down, and we'll see that I can also use gender check change. So both of these will use the same property to run. So I go back and look at the code with F7. You'll see that the code has added not only the male radio button check change, but also the female radio button check change. So we've got both those events are being handled by one subroutine instead of two separate ones. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a file ready to load. But before I do that, I'm going to save everything. I'm going to now go to my project. And in my project, you'll see here that one of them is the resource settings, and I can bring in different things. And what I'm going to do is change this to images, and you'll see it's available for images. Now I can pull in images different ways. Let's first of all talk about the picture box before I do this by just assigning it. So here's the picture box. I have a property in the picture box of image. So let me go back to properties, and we'll take a look at the image, and you'll see right now it says none. I've got a little ellipsis button. I can click on the ellipsis button, and I can go out and pull into my resource file. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit imports, and I'll let you see that I can go out, and I'm going to go to pictures, and I'm going to go quickly to profile images. And there I got the female one that I can pull in, and I'll say open. And that's one way we can pull in the information if we want. I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to make certain it didn't come in a minute. You'll see that's one way we could bring it in. In fact, let me go ahead and do that. Let me bring it back in the way I was going to do. And let's just pull that image back in. Imports, I'll get the female. And let's go with the male first. I'll hit that and say OK. Now, without doing anything, we're just going to run this, and you'll see that the image is in place. I hit start, and we can see that the image is there. And here is our thing, and I haven't really done anything yet on that, and our default was with an image. But let's change that now. I'm going to hit close. Let's go back, and I'm going to get rid of the image here. Instead of loading that image, I'm going to take it back to none, and we're going to do it in code. And so one of the things we can do in code is, let me go back to the code that we have here, and what I can do is create a simple profile picture box image equals, and here's where I can go to the resource to pull that in. My.Resources, and I'm going to go to Resource Manager, and it has a property called Get Object. Now that will go out and get the object. The object I'm going to get in this case is going to be the male silhouette on that, but I'm bringing in only an object from my resource file over here. So what I want to do is I need to cast that object into an image type, and to do that we use this C type, and then I'm going to cast it into an image. Okay, now let's run this time. Right now I do not have anything there. I've set up it only in code. Now this will right now be only a male image silhouette, so let's see this run. Okay, I'm going to click on something. Won't change, but it did pull in right away the silhouette we had. It wasn't from the design setting, it wasn't here, it was from our code. So now let's add the code necessary to make it male and female. And once again, I'm going to go to the resource area. Now, one of the things I did was I pulled it in initially through loading it through the dialog area, but we can also do a drag and drop, and I'll show you this. I'm going to bring up my profile images. Here I am with it in my folder. Now I'm going to just drag this image over and drop it in place. And now I've got the image in there as well. So we can have a number of images. We can drag them in, or we can pull them in one at a time. Or I could come up here and do an add and add existing file and pull in an image as well. So there are a couple of different ways we can bring in those different images. And you'll see them over here in our resource area that we have those images in place. Okay, let's go back to our code now. And I'm going to go full screen so you can see it a little bit better. And what I'm going to do is make a condition. If the male radio button checked property is true, and I don't have to say is true, it's already a on-off Boolean value. If checked, then I want to bring in this image. I'm going to do this, copy and paste. Else, we'll put an else, and since we have only two conditions, male and female, this time I'm going to take this and cut it and change this to female. Okay, and there we've got that set. Let's run this. Now, this time, I'm just going to hit that, and it changes over to a very sexist-oriented view of silhouette of a female with long hair or a male with short hair. So this is one way we can load from the resource file. We're actually bringing it in from our resource file that we have over here and pulling it in to our code. Now, this is not a very efficient way to do things because we're repeating our code. So let's create a quick subroutine to do this a little bit more efficiently. So let's create a code called display image. So I'll create a private subroutine called display image, and I'm going to bring in by value a image, and I'm going to call it my image as string. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Instead of hard coding it in, I'll just bring in my image. And I'm going to get rid of this up here and change it to, you just highlight that out and change it to display image. And get that extra out of there. There we go. And I'll just grab this real quick. And we'll overlay this one. And we'll change it back to female for this one. So now we're passing in the resource name that we have over here. We're passing it into our subroutine and initializing our picture box. So let's just see this run. Okay, let's go female. Then that's working. Okay, so we've got our code a little bit cleaner now. We're using one area to do our work. We've got a subroutine that we're passing in the value as a string into here to load it in from the resource manager, convert it to an image type, and then assign it to the picture box's image property. Well, that's really good. We've got that done. Yeah, let's do it with a get image. Now I'm going to double click here and create an event. And for this event, we're going to do real quickly a dimension of OFD as new open file dialog. And I'm going to initialize the initial directory to be my picture area in my computer. So I'm going to go computer, file system, then I'm going to go to special directories, and I'm going to go to my pictures, and there's my pictures. So I'll make that the initial directory. Also, I'm going to create a filter and for the filter we're going to put this in quotes, and the filter is going to be image files. And for those image files, we're going to use PNG. We're going to use JPEG. We're going to use GIF, and we'll use the BNP. Okay, and put a semicolon there, and then put it in parentheses, then a vertical pipe, and type in again. We'll grab that real quick, copy. PNG. Okay, and then I'm going to do another vertical pipe and say all files. And for all files, and then I'm going to use the vertical pipe again, and then use and that should do it. That'll create our filter. Now this is a open file dialog box, so we're going to use the open file dialog, show dialog, and it will return a value. So we're going to put an if condition on this, and we're going to say if is equal to the dialog okay, then we've got a file. And therefore we want to take the picture box, the profile picture box, we're going to use the load method on that, and we're going to load the file that we got from our open file dialog. File name. There we go. And that does it. So now we're using the open file dialog. We're initializing it to my pictures for the initial directory. We're telling it the file type extensions that we're going to be looking for. However, we're going to give the user the option, I need an asterisk there, an option to get all files, and then we're going to bring up the dialog box, let them pick a file, and if they do pick a file, dialog result OK will be true, and we're going to load the picture box with their file. Let's give this a try. Okay, let me change this a little bit and bring this back up. Let's get our get image. There is our dialog box. I'm going to go here and grab this and say open, and there we go. I pulled in an image. So we can use the radio buttons to toggle on different silhouettes, bring in from the My.Resources file, or we can go out to get images and get a crazy, goofy picture and pull it in. on that. So there we go. We've seen two different ways to do that. The important thing to remember as we're working with this is that if we're using the resource file, we can load that up in our design time, and we can initialize it with a value. I want to show you this. We can initialize the value on that by coming down to the image property of the picture box and setting that by hitting on the ellipsis, pulling it in. Now you see both those are there that we can use, that we pulled in, and I can use that and initialize it that way. Or in code, I can bring in the information. Here are my resource files with the ones in it, and I'm loading it up, bringing in the code to pull in the resource manager's get object method and pull in the image that I need, that I'm passing in, and I'm converting it to an image type so that it's ready for the image for the picture box. Or I can go out to the file and pull in an image and load it in with the load method. So we can use the load method, or we can assign an image directly to the image property. We can put it in our resource file to have a number of files. For example, let's say I have a program where I'm working with throwing dice. Well, maybe I'll have all the different faces of the dice in my resource file, and then depending upon how the random roll occurs, I'll retrieve an image of the dice. And I'll put those all in the resource area, and I can drag and drop them here, or I can add them one at a time by setting images first. On that, set the images, and then add an existing file. On that, I can take care of that. Or I can drag and drop, as you saw me drag the female silhouette into place on that. So this is a quick way to learn how to do that. Let me pull in some more information here for you to see so that you can go back out and review. I'm going to pull in the extra code now that I created earlier. We're going to come up here, and I'm going to paste it into the top above public right here. And let me go full screen here, and you'll see that I pulled in also option strict. I've got that set in my settings, but I want you to realize also that we have out there the different information for our documentation. The image of the screen is out at Imager, and the code for this, the actual code that I created earlier, although it with documentation, is at Pastebin, and you can see this video anytime you want at YouTube at user/Bolen Presents. So I hope that you'll appreciate and take advantage of learning how to use the picture box. It's a nice thing. We can bring it in from the resource file. We can also bring it directly from a disk location using the load method, or we can assign it a design time by clicking on the image property in the properties section of the picture box and assigning it an image. And usually I bring that in, importing it into the resource file so that when I compile it and also then deploy that program, everything's there with all the images needed for the program to run. So you take care, get your hands dirty in the code, and try out that picture box.